Blackened Wish, Chapter 3, Execution. In this world, people were born with the spirit of a single creature imbued within them. This was referred to as a gift, and granted them either an ability or specific traits from that animal. It typically manifested around age 6 or 7, but some took longer than others, with the latest recorded at age 12. If someone's gift did not appear by their 13th birthday, it was presumed that they didn't have one. Most of these people were looked down upon, or even shunned by society at large. A person's gift was derived from an animal their parents interacted with. More contact with a particular animal meant a greater chance of passing on its gift to a child. Due to the fact that second-hand contact could also influence gifts, it was impossible to guarantee which one a parent would pass on. There were always outliers whose gifts were different from their peers. Nathan was one of those outliers. He knew many people with common gifts such as dog and rabbit, but his was unique. So much, in fact, that no one even knew what animal it was derived from. There was no known creature that could simply turn itself invisible at will. That suited Nathan just fine, though. The fact that nobody knew what to call his gift didn't bother him at all. In fact, as far as he was concerned, that was all the better. The less that people knew about his abilities, the easier his job was. Perhaps it was karma, then, that landed him in his current predicament. He'd been so focused on escaping that he hadn't asked Stella about her gift. Whatever it was, she used it on him right when he was about to duck underneath the gate. It felt like she literally sucked the life out of him, leaving him just barely able to stay standing. He didn't have the strength to resist the guards as they carried him to the dungeon. Even now, he was still feeling a little lightheaded. Apparently he'd conked out soon after being brought down here, but for exactly how long he had no idea. There were no windows anywhere in sight, so he couldn't tell if it was morning yet. Not that it really matters. I'm screwed either way. Only thing I can do now is wait to be executed. Can't imagine I'll get anything lighter. Something seemed to be forcibly suppressing his gift, making him unable to use his vanish ability. Though even if he could use it, he was currently chained to the wall. The best he could do was trick a guard into thinking he'd escaped, but with only a 15-second time frame, the chance of pulling that off was slim to none. Once the guards had their hands on him, his invisibility wouldn't work on them anymore. The sound of footsteps reached his ears, cutting his thoughts short. It made his skin crawl, as if death itself was coming to take his life. Nathan steeled himself, pretending he'd accepted the hopelessness of the situation. Maybe that might somehow convince his brain that it was okay, and make his circumstances less stressful. It was ironic, really. Someone like him, who was trained in the art of killing others, was terrified of his own death. He was only human, after all. And it wasn't like he felt no remorse for what he did. Even if it was just a job, that didn't justify murder. What he'd done could never be forgiven. His day of reckoning was long overdue. Still, he couldn't ignore the nausea bubbling in his stomach. What appeared from the darkness wasn't a group of guards as he was expecting. Instead, it was a lone figure wearing a familiar-looking cloak. Their face was hidden underneath the hood, but their short height and build suggested they were young. Who? The question was snatched from his lips as the cloaked figure pushed their hood back slightly, revealing the face of a little girl with stunning red hair. Nathan recognized her immediately. What was she doing here? Did she come to yell at him because he hadn't gotten her out of the castle? Or was she mad that he used her as a hostage against the guards? Either way, he had no excuse. All he could do was apologize. Before he could open his mouth to do so, however, she put her finger to her lips, signaling him to stay quiet. She hesitated for a moment, then took a breath and approached him. "Why are you—" he breathed, his voice barely above a whisper. Stella bit her lip, choosing her words carefully. "I just wanted to see you again." "What?" She lowered her head, fidgeting with her fingers. "I know it's stupid. I don't really get it either, but—" "Aren't you mad at me?" "Why would I be?" There wasn't a shred of malice in her eyes. All he could see was an innocent sparkle that made his heart skip a beat. She opened her mouth to say something, but then faltered and looked away. Even in the dim lighting provided by the candles, he could tell she was blushing. Did she not know her father was dead? He was certain the king's body was found earlier while they were trying to escape. By now, everyone in the castle should know, and the whole place would be in an uproar. Surely she had more important things to do than come down here to chat with him. Listen, Stella hesitated, unable to look directly at him. What are you? Some kind of assassin? The way she's struggling to ask that is really cute. She's so innocent. Or maybe, is she afraid of me? Can't blame her if she is. I did pretty much threaten her with a knife. I'd probably be scared too if I were in her shoes. My father... did you... She couldn't bring herself to finish the question. So she does know. Is that why she's down here? I thought I was the obvious suspect. Unless there just happens to be another suspicious person like me lurking around the castle. That'd be pretty convenient. Nathan, please. Answer me. I need to know. Her soft, pleading voice pierced through him like a needle burying itself into his chest. He didn't want to lie to her, but he couldn't bring himself to tell her the truth either. How was he supposed to say that he was the one who murdered her dad? Explain it wasn't personal, but just part of his job? There was no way she'd accept that. Regardless of the reason, it was a fact that her father died by his hands. Nothing would change that. He thought he was mentally prepared. It wasn't his first assignment, after all. Ending someone's life and then watching their loved ones grieve over them was something he'd experienced before. But that was always at a distance. He'd never had to look someone in the eyes and tell them that he was responsible. This time, he couldn't just walk away and pretend it never happened. This time, he had to face reality head on and admit what he'd done. But he couldn't. The words wouldn't come out, no matter how hard he tried. And looking into her eyes just made it that much more difficult. I don't expect you to forgive me. That was the best he could manage. He'd hoped it would soften the blow, if only a little. Even still, he couldn't bring himself to look at her. The last thing he wanted to see was her tears. His words hung in the air for a few moments before she spoke again. But it's not really your fault, is it? Of course it's my fault. He died because I stabbed him. Do you not understand how killing someone works? Stella edged closer to him, shaking her head. You didn't do it because you wanted to, right? Someone told you to do it, so you had to. That doesn't matter. Whether I wanted to or not doesn't change the fact that I killed him. Nathan, look at me. Please. Slowly, he slid his gaze over to her. To his surprise, she didn't look angry or upset. There was something of a smile on her face, but it was small and strained. She was clearly forcing it. After a pause, she took a breath and continued. Having to do what you're told, even if you don't want to? I know how that feels. And what's your point? I'm saying it's not your fault. You can't blame yourself for following orders. Easy for you to say. You've never been ordered to kill someone. What's your deal anyway? Your dad just died, yet here you are talking to the guy who killed him like it's nothing. Are you right in the head? She glared at him, pouting. Well, excuse me. I was thinking about letting you out of here because I felt bad for you, but if that's how you're going to act, maybe I'll just leave. Huh. Nice try, but I'm not falling for that. There's no way you just let me go. Fine then. Do it yourself, you jerk! Practically spitting that at him, she hurled a shiny metal object at his face. It hit the wall, then fell at his feet with a clink that seemed far too loud. Then with a huff, she turned on her heel and ran out of the cell, disappearing down the hallway. Women, he muttered to himself, rolling his eyes. Then he slid his gaze down to the object she'd thrown at him. It was a skeleton key, a special type of key that allegedly could open any kind of lock. Supposedly only a handful were ever made. He'd only seen one once before, during a previous assignment to break into a rich lord's home and steal some documents from his personal safe. With its unique skull insignia and bone-like design, it definitely didn't seem like the kind of thing an innocent little girl would carry around. Where in the world did she get one of these? No, more importantly, why is she letting me go? Does she not care that I killed her dad? Kinda feels like I'm more upset about it than she is. What a weird girl.